When most people think of the Chevrolet Corvette, they picture America's sports car, a legend that's been tearing up roads since 1953. But while millions of Corvettes have rolled off assembly lines over the decades, there are a handful so rare, so exclusive, and so extreme that most people will never see one in their lifetime. These aren't your typical Corvettes sitting in suburban garages or cruising down highways on sunny weekends. These are the unicorns, the legends, the cars that exist in such microscopic numbers that even hardcore Corvette enthusiasts might spend years searching for just a glimpse. Some were built for racing and never meant for public roads. Others were special factory experiments that somehow escaped destruction. And a few were so expensive, or so extreme, that only the bravest buyers dared to order them. What makes these Corvettes truly special isn't just their rarity. It's the stories behind them, the engineering madness that created them, and the way they pushed the boundaries of what an American sports car could be. So buckle up, because we're about to dive into 7 Corvettes so rare that spotting one in the wild would be like finding a needle in a haystack. These are the cars that prove the Corvette legend goes far deeper than most people realize. Number 7. 1963 Chevrolet Corvette Grand Sport. Only 5 produced. The year was 1962, and Chevrolet had a problem. Carroll Shelby's AC Cobra was dominating road racing circuits, embarrassing Detroit's finest at every turn. Zora Arkus Duntov, the legendary Corvette engineer often called the father of the Corvette, wasn't about to let some British chassis with a Ford engine steal America's thunder. So he conceived a plan so audacious, so radical, that it would create one of the rarest and most valuable Corvettes ever built, the Grand Sport. Duntov's vision was crystal clear. Build a lightweight racing machine that could go toe-to-toe with the Cobra and beat it at its own game. The project was codenamed Project Lightweight, and that name wasn't an exaggeration. While a standard production Stingray tipped the scales at around 3,000 pounds, the Grand Sport weighed in at a featherweight 1,900 pounds. That's a full 1,000 pounds lighter than its production cousin, and 300 to 400 pounds less than the Cobra it was designed to destroy. To achieve this extreme weight reduction, Duntov and his team went absolutely wild. They crafted paper-thin fiberglass body panels, so delicate they could barely withstand normal handling. They hand-built aluminum and magnesium components throughout the car, replacing every piece of heavy iron and steel they could justify removing. The frame itself was a masterpiece of engineering, a rigid super-light round steel twin-tube design with a built-in roll bar that provided strength without unnecessary weight. Under the hood sat a specially prepared aluminum Block 3, 177 cubic inch V8 engine that developed an astonishing 550 horsepower. Fed by 58mm Weber carburetors, this engine was built purely for competition. It featured heavy-duty suspension components, aluminum steering box, aluminum differential rear suspension with drilled control arms, Girling solid disc brakes with solid rotors, and Halibrand magnesium wheels wrapped in Firestone racing tires. Every single component was chosen with one goal in mind: maximum performance with minimum weight. The body itself was a work of aerodynamic art. A tapered roofline and windshield, hard-edge styling, plexiglass-covered headlights built into the body, turn signals integrated with the grille area, hood extractor vents, strategically placed air intakes in front and rear fenders, and venting between the taillights. Every curve and vent served a purpose, channeling air exactly where it needed to go. Inside, luxury didn't exist. The interior was all fiberglass with blue carpet, a teak wood steering wheel, and only 2 extra gauges for differential and engine oil temperature. This wasn't a car for Sunday drives or impressing dates. It was a weapon. Determined to give the Grand Sport the endurance to outlast the Cobra in long-distance races, Duntov insisted on installing a 36-gallon fuel tank, ensuring the car could go the distance without frequent pit stops. The Grand Sport's racing debut showed immediate promise. Drivers quickly discovered they had a genuine Cobra killer on their hands. But the glory was devastatingly short-lived. General Motors executives soon learned about Duntov's racing program and were absolutely furious. You see, in 1957, the Automobile Manufacturers Association had enacted a voluntary ban on factory-supported racing. GM was supposed to be playing by those rules, but here was Duntov building purpose-built race cars right under their noses. The corporate powers that be promptly terminated the project and made plans to destroy all 5 Grand Sports that had been built. Duntov, refusing to let his creations die, moved quickly. He transferred the cars to private buyers, some of whom made modifications and continued racing the vehicles for several years. Those Grand Sports went on to prove themselves in competition, validating everything Duntov had envisioned. Amazingly, all 5 original Grand Sports survive today as museum displays or in private collections. Occasionally, they appear together in public during special exhibits, treating enthusiasts to a sight most will never witness again. The 1963 Grand Sport is valued anywhere from $6 to $8 million, on the rare occasions one might come up for sale, making it not just one of the rarest Corvettes ever built, but one of the most valuable American cars in existence. Number 6. 1969 Chevrolet Corvette ZL1. Only 2 produced. If you thought the Grand Sport was rare, 1969 Corvette ZL1 takes rarity to an entirely different stratosphere. With only 2 ever built for public consumption, this legendary model stands as the rarest production Corvette of all time. But it wasn't just the microscopic production numbers that made it special. Under the hood, the ZL1 packed one of the most powerful and exotic engines Chevrolet had ever produced. In the late 1960s, Can-Am Racing was the premier motorsports series featuring prototype class cars with massive V8 engines and virtually unlimited regulations. Chevrolet wanted to dominate this championship, so they developed a purpose-built power plant called the ZL1. This was an all-aluminum 427 cubic inch big block V8 designed to deliver devastating power while maintaining a weight advantage over traditional iron block engines. The ZL1 engine was essentially a derivative of the already legendary 88 big block, but instead of heavy cast iron construction, it featured aluminum throughout. The block, heads, intake manifold, water pump, and other components were all crafted from lightweight aluminum alloys. This construction dramatically reduced weight by approximately 150 pounds compared to the iron L88, while maintaining the engine's monstrous output. Officially, Chevrolet rated the ZL1 at 430 horsepower, but absolutely nobody believed that conservative figure. In reality, most experts agree the engine was producing well over 500 horsepower in street trim, with race-prepared versions pushing closer to 600 horsepower or beyond. The engine featured a compression ratio of 12.0 to 1, fed by a Holley 4-barrel carburetor, and was designed specifically for racing applications. Chevrolet produced approximately 200 ZL1 engines total. Most went directly to Can-Am racing teams, where they proved devastatingly effective. But 69 of these exotic power plants were installed in Camaros, special order muscle cars built specifically for drag racing teams. That left a tiny handful for other applications. And somehow, impossibly, just 2 made their way into production Corvettes destined for public sale. The ZL1 Corvette wasn't meant for the casual buyer. It lacked many street-friendly features like a functional choke, and proper heating was essentially non-existent. The engine required high-octane racing fuel, demanded frequent maintenance, and had temperamental cold starting characteristics. This was a track-ready beast that happened to be barely street-legal. The cost was astronomical for the era. The ZL1 option alone added over $4,700 to the Corvette's base price, nearly doubling the cost of the car. In 1969 dollars, that was an absolutely staggering amount of money. For context, you could buy 2 brand new Corvettes with standard engines for less than the price of a single ZL1 equipped car. That's why only 2 or so brave souls checked that option box. The 1969 official Chevrolet literature doesn't even mention the ZL1 option for the Corvette. If you were a successful drag racer with deep connections, or a dealer who knew the right people at Chevrolet, you might have heard whispers about this ultra-exclusive option. But for the average buyer flipping through brochures at the dealership, the ZL1 Corvette simply didn't exist. Those 2 ZL1 Corvettes represented the absolute pinnacle of Corvette performance in the 1960s. They were factory-built race cars disguised as road-going sports cars, capable of running quarter-mile times in the low 13s or better with a skilled driver. On road courses, they were equally devastating, combining lightweight with massive power to dominate virtually anything they encountered. Today, if one of those 2 ZL1 Corvettes were to come up for sale, the price would be absolutely astronomical. While exact valuations are difficult because they trade so rarely, experts suggest they could command anywhere from $3 to $5 million, or potentially even more to the right collector. for a car that most people don't even know exists. The 1969 Corvette ZL1 stands as the ultimate Corvette unicorn. Number 5. 1967 Ford Shelby GT 500 Super Snake. Wait, you might be thinking, that's a Mustang, not a Corvette. And you would be absolutely right. But here's why it belongs in this conversation. In 1967, Carroll Shelby took the Ford Mustang to an entirely new level by creating the GT 500, a brutal 355 horsepower machine that transformed Ford's pony car into a true muscle legend. The GT 500 was immediately successful, and Ford sold 248 examples that year. But lurking beyond the standard GT 500 was something far more extreme. The GT 500 Super Snake, created specifically for a Goodyear tire. Promotional event, the Super Snake was engineered to run 500 miles at an average speed of 142 miles per hour, demonstrating the durability of Goodyear's new Thunderbolt tire. To make that possible, Shelby installed a purpose-built GT40 Mark II 427 engine, producing an astonishing 600 horsepower, along with a host of performance upgrades throughout the car. Only one Super Snake was ever built, making it even rarer than both ZL1 Corvettes combined. When this one-of-one Super Snake crossed the auction block in 2019, it sold for $2.2 million, making it the most expensive Mustang ever sold at that time. Why include it here? Because it represents exactly the kind of extreme rarity and performance that defines this list. And because in the muscle car world, Corvettes, Mustangs, and Camaros all competed for the same performance crown. The Super Snake shows that rarity and exclusivity weren't limited to just one manufacturer during this golden era. Number 4. 1971 Plymouth Hemi Cuda convertible. Only 12 produced. Like the Super Snake, this isn't technically a Corvette, but bear with me because the story is too incredible to ignore, and it shows the broader context of extreme rarity in American performance cars. The Plymouth Barracuda had only been on the market since 1964, but by 1971, it already felt like the end of the road. The muscle car era was rapidly shrinking with an oil crisis looming and stricter emissions regulations right around the corner. Plymouth refreshed the Barracuda with a redesigned front end, but it wasn't enough to stop the sales collapse. Production plummeted from 55,499 units to just 18,690. As demand fell off a cliff, certain trim and engine combinations were quietly transformed into future legends. The most extreme example is the 1971 Hemi Cuda convertible. The final year buyers could still order the legendary 426 Hemi engine. In total, just 12 Hemi Cuda convertibles were built. Only 7 were intended for the United States market, while 5 were exported overseas. Of those 12, just 3 were equipped with a 4-speed manual transmission. Each packed 425 horsepower, and today they exist in a financial universe entirely their own. One sold for $3.5 million in 2015. Another example reached an eye-watering $4.8 million at auction in 2021, although it ultimately failed to sell even at that staggering price. These Mopar convertibles prove that rarity combined with legendary performance creates valuations that defy logic. Number 3. 1953 Chevrolet Corvette Roadster. Only 300 produced. Every legend has a beginning, and for the Corvette, that beginning was surprisingly humble. The 1953 Corvette Roadster was Chevrolet's first attempt at building an American sports car to compete with European imports. But unlike the powerful V8 monsters the Corvette would later become, that first-year model was almost underpowered and underwhelming. Only 300 total units were manufactured during the Corvette's inaugural year of production. Each one was hand-built, meaning no two were exactly alike in terms of fit and finish. They all rolled off the assembly line in polo white with red interiors, powered by a modest inline 6-cylinder engine, producing just 150 horsepower. By muscle car standards, that's laughable. But by 1953 standards for a sports car, it was respectable, if not thrilling. The 1953 Corvette struggled to find buyers. Of those 300 built, Chevrolet only managed to sell 183 of them initially. Dealers couldn't give them away. The car was too expensive for what it offered, too impractical for daily use, and not powerful enough to excite performance enthusiasts. It seemed destined to be a one-year experiment that would quickly fade into obscurity. But Chevrolet didn't give up. Engineers continued developing the platform, and by 1955, they dropped a V8 engine under the hood, transforming the Corvette into the performance machine it was always meant to be. That decision saved the nameplate and launched a legend that continues to this day. Today, only about 200 of those original 1953 Corvettes are believed to still exist. Despite its underwhelming performance statistics, the historical significance cannot be overstated. These are the cars that started it all, the foundation upon which 7 generations of Corvette performance would be built. Values vary wildly depending on condition, but pristine examples have sold for well over $300,000. Not bad for a car that dealers couldn't sell when it was new. Number 2. Callaway Twin Turbo Corvette C4. 510 produced. In the mid-1980s, the Corvette was in an interesting place. The C4 generation had launched with futuristic styling and modern technology, but emissions regulations and corporate priorities meant horsepower numbers were disappointingly modest compared to the muscle car glory days. Enter Reeves Callaway, an independent engineer and performance specialist who had been turbocharging Alfa Romeo engines with impressive results. Chevrolet had been testing competitors' cars and was surprised by the reliable performance Callaway achieved with their twin-turbo version of the Alfa Romeo V6 engine. That led to a conversation that would make automotive history. Chevrolet approached Callaway about undertaking a similar program for the Corvette. The resulting partnership produced the legendary Callaway Twin Turbo Corvettes, and in an unprecedented move, the Callaway Corvette became a regular production option designated RPO B2K. This was the only time in Chevrolet's history that a specialist manufacturer was entrusted with a technically advanced high-performance RPO. Let that sink in. You could walk into a Chevrolet dealership, order a brand new Corvette, and check the box for RPO B2K. Your car would then be shipped from the Bowling Green assembly plant to Callaway's facility in Old Lyme, Connecticut, where it would be completely transformed. Callaway's engineers would install twin turbochargers, upgraded fuel injection, strengthened internals, improved cooling systems, and a host of other modifications. When completed, the Callaway Twin Turbo produced 345 horsepower and a massive 465 pound-feet of torque. Those numbers absolutely demolished the standard Corvette's output and put the Callaway on par with exotic European sports cars costing twice as much. The Callaway Twin Turbo was engineered to be the ultimate Corvette package, producing tremendous power while retaining all emissions controls and carrying a full factory warranty. This wasn't some backyard tuner special. It was a legitimate factory-backed performance option that happened to be built by an outside specialist. Between 1987 and 1991, 510 of these special Corvettes were built in coupe, convertible, and toward the end of production, speedster form. That limited production run makes them genuinely rare, especially considering how many have been lost to accidents, neglect, or poorly executed modifications over the decades. A derivative of the Callaway Twin Turbo, called Project Sledgehammer, recorded an official top speed of 254.76 miles per hour in 1988, making it the fastest street-legal car in the world at that time. That record-breaking run cemented the Callaway Corvette's place in automotive history. Today, clean examples of Callaway Twin Turbo Corvettes command strong prices in the collector market, typically selling for $75,000 to $150,000, depending on condition, mileage, and configuration. They represent a unique moment when Chevrolet was willing to partner with an outside specialist to create something truly special. Number 1. 1983 Chevrolet Corvette. Only one produced. For all intents and purposes, the 1983 C4 serves as the absolute rarest of all Corvettes, even if it's technically on a technicality. After all, there was only a single Corvette produced during the 1983 model year because no actual production run ever materialized. But here's where the story gets interesting and a bit complicated. Chevrolet had planned to launch the revolutionary 4th generation Corvette for the 1983 model year. The C3 generation had been in production since 1968, and by the early 80s, it was showing its age. The automotive world was changing rapidly with new technologies, safety regulations, and fuel economy standards forcing manufacturers to completely rethink their approaches. The C4 Corvette was designed to be a clean sheet redesign. New chassis, new suspension, new styling, knew everything. But as development progressed, engineers encountered problem after problem. The new chassis wasn't quite right. The digital dashboard was having issues. The suspension tuning needed more work. Quality control concerns kept surfacing. By late 1982, it became clear that the C4 simply wasn't ready for public consumption. Rather than rush an unfinished product to market and potentially damage the Corvette's reputation, Chevrolet made a controversial decision. They would skip the 1983 model year entirely, continue producing the outgoing C3 through the end of 1982, and then launch the C4 as a 1984 model. That decision meant there would be no 1983 Corvette for public sale. Except that wasn't entirely true. Chevrolet actually did produce a handful of 1983 model year Corvettes, 61 units to be exact. 18 were hand-built prototypes used for development and testing. 43 were pilot line cars built to work out assembly line processes and train workers. These pilot cars were critical for identifying potential manufacturing issues before full production began. Here's the problem. Almost all of those 61 1983 Corvettes were destroyed before reaching the public. Chevrolet crushed them, scrapped them, or otherwise disposed of them to prevent them from entering circulation. The company didn't want early development cars with potential issues floating around and potentially causing problems or lawsuits down the road. But one survived. Just one. A white 1983 Corvette that somehow escaped destruction and now resides at the National Corvette Museum in Bowling Green, Kentucky. This sole survivor features a T-top roof, the new 5.7-liter V8 producing 205 horsepower, and all the revolutionary design elements that would define the C4 generation when it officially launched as a 1984 model. The National Corvette Museum displays this ultra-rare 1983 Corvette as one of its crown jewels. It represents a fascinating moment in Corvette history, a car that technically was never supposed to exist for the public, yet somehow survived when all its siblings were destroyed. If this car were ever to come up for sale, which it almost certainly never will given its museum status, the value would be absolutely astronomical. As the only 1983 Corvette in existence, it stands as the single rarest Corvette ever produced. Some might argue it shouldn't count because it was never intended for public sale. But the fact remains, it exists. It's a 1983 model year Corvette, and there's only one in the entire world. That makes it the ultimate Corvette unicorn, the car that represents an entire missing model year, and a reminder that sometimes the rarest treasures are the ones that were never supposed to exist in the first place. These 7 Corvettes represent the absolute pinnacle of rarity in America's sports car lineage. From the 5 Grand Sports that nearly died before they could prove themselves, to the 2 ZL1s that pushed performance to its absolute limits, to the single 1983 that represents an entire missing year, each tells a story of engineering ambition, corporate politics, and the relentless pursuit of performance. Most people will never see any of these cars in person. They exist in private collections, museums, and the garages of wealthy enthusiasts who understand their historical significance. But knowing they exist, understanding the stories behind them, and appreciating the engineering excellence they represent makes every Corvette enthusiast's appreciation for the nameplate that much deeper. The Corvette legend isn't just about the millions of cars that have been sold over 70-plus years. It's also about these rare exceptions, the special builds, the experimental models, and the limited editions that pushed boundaries and proved what was possible when engineers were given the freedom to dream big. So the next time you see a Corvette cruising down the highway, remember that somewhere out there, hidden away in climate-controlled garages and museum displays, are these 7 unicorns. Cars so rare that most people will never see one, yet so significant that they've shaped the Corvette story in ways that continue echoing through every new generation.